Landgrebe Lawn Care is looking to add some more lawns for the 2024 season. If you or someone you may know is interested, you can contact Austin Landgrebe at 641-660-7874 for free estimates. Landgrebe Lawn Care will also travel outside of the Sigourney area. Bush and small tree work, lawn rolling, and much, much more. Landgrebe Lawn Care for all your lawn care needs. Call 641-660-7874. Mowing, rolling, sweeping, snow blowing, and lots more. Now doing skid loader work.
Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast, Wednesday night, March 20th, about 9 o'clock. Normal time here. First half of Boise State versus Colorado. And a good game here. Finished up. Grambling State did beat Montana State earlier tonight. So they get the opportunity to play Purdue on Friday. Obviously, this is going to be all NCAA tournament time. Talk a lot of Iowa State men's basketball, a lot of Iowa women's basketball. Then we'll touch the other games. First, there's really two things I want to touch on before we really get started there. Number one, if you are a basketball fan, if you are a Caitlin Clark fan, which most people that listen to this podcast would be, and I have not read that yet, but everything I've seen on the internet and people I've listened to on the radio today, you have to read the ESPN article written by Wright Thompson about Caitlin Clark. It's everything about her, on her, what makes her tick. She's not a perfect human. It is a long read. I said it takes like half hour to read it. It's not just a 1,500-word essay. It is a complete article on her. Wright Thompson does great stuff. He's written great things on Tiger Woods and many other people. So I encourage everybody, and I'm going to try to make time tomorrow to read it in the morning before I get into work and everything. But so that's there. And then just to touch the Caden Proctor story. And the big story with that is just the way it's set up. The transfer portal is not even open right now, but everything that is said, he's going back to Alabama for more money. And then the other big question was how much money he got from Iowa, and obviously that will not be released. But according to Brad Heinrichs, who's a director of the Swarm, it's not as much as people think. He's been paid some, but it wasn't all up front. So in that retrospect, maybe it isn't as bad as we think it is, where he got paid $1 million and now he just to keep it and never set foot in an Iowa uniform. So, and then, tonight with it being NCAA tourney talk, and we kind of talked about it last week with Trevor, I did invite Zach Tremmel. He's been a regular contributor to the podcast. I want to thank him. And then Trevor joins us as well. Trevor, let's just go with you first. Kind of your thoughts on those two quick things, the Caitlin Clark article. I don't know if you spent time reading it, heard about it or anything, and then the Caden Proctor.
Well, the Clark article, I clicked on ESPN this morning before I made some rounds with the boss, seeing customers today. I didn't have time to read it though, but I did a quick scroll and it looked like it was really long. So
yeah.
Definitely, like you said, probably need a good 30 minutes or so to read it. And then Caden Proctor, I mean, that's just, I don't know. The first time it really didn't bother me that much, but now it just seems like silliness in a way. So we'll get to that probably more toward the end. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
the Caitlin Clark article, I want to either tonight when we get done or tomorrow morning, I want to read it.
Absolutely. Zach, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I was kind of like Trevor. I saw it, obviously, first thing there on ESPN, clicked on it, and it was extremely long. So that's going to take a while for me to get through. And then, the whole Caden Proctor thing, I just wish I knew more about even how this all works, because it's just mind blowing to me that he even gets a dime from us. I mean, I would feel like you got to sign contracts and all this. And I don't know, like you said, there's just so many unknowns to this stuff that I think the NCAA's kind of lost control, and I don't even know if they know what's going on. And something's got to, like I told you last night, I'm all for athletes making money off their name if they sell autographs, jerseys, but it's kind of turning in just free agency to me, like the NFL.
It's becoming more and more like the NFL. It's coming. And, just another storyline that we're not going to talk about, but Texas A&M hired Trev Alberts, the Nebraska AD, and in his opening press conference, he said there's a new expense item coming to every athletic department that's going to be $15 to $20 million at a place like A&M or Nebraska or any of those big programs. They're gonna start paying players. It's going to be a revenue share. And again, I'm not against people making money, but this is not professional sports, but it's definitely turning into it in basketball and football. It's a topic for a different day, but I do think we needed to touch it tonight with it being kind of forefront of the news here in Iowa. Now let's get to the topic at hand, the NCAA tournament. Kind of a little bit of recap. As I said, we're going to talk Cyclones first. The Cyclone men 2 seed in the tournament. A heck of a run last weekend in Kansas City. Won every game by over double digits. Beat Houston 2 out of 3 times over the season. Beat Kansas State 2 out of 3 times. Split with Baylor. And in my opinion, it didn't matter at all. The bracket was set. Or maybe they were, I guess I shouldn't say it. Maybe they were a 3 seed and then worked their way up to a 2 seed. But there was, I thought, a legitimate discussion needed to be had whether they were a 1 seed. And obviously we weren't close because it came out they were the 8 overall seed, so they were almost a 3 anyway. How did you see that, Trevor, Zach? I don't care who goes first here, but what do you think? Let's just go ahead and start with Trevor.
Zach's going to have more to say on this than I do. Like I told you, I haven't really paid as much attention to the men's game. But, yeah, that was a little surprising because there was some people talking on the TV that thought they may have worked themselves to have won, like you kind of touched on. And then I know the guy that was on ESPN or CBS, whatever it was, said their out-of-conference schedule kind of hurt them. So that's about all I know. I was surprised they were the 4th overall 2 seed, but I'll let Zach talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought they'd be a 2 seed. I didn't think they would be, arguably they'll get the 8 seed, which is, the worst 2 seed. I thought they'd be probably the 5 or 6. But yeah, from what I've heard too, it's their non-conference schedule. I don't know I don't remember who they played. I know didn't they lose to Texas A&M outside of conference?
Yep. They lost
to Iowa.
Yep.
They lost to Texas Tech. I don't know who else they played. Obviously you'd think Iowa would be better, and I don't know who else they played, but I guess we'll find out if the Big 12's actually for real in the tournament. They're highly ranked. Obviously, they look like the best conference in the country, and we'll see if they come out and lay a big egg. Then obviously the committee got it right. If they come out and they get two teams to the Final Four, then I think they really missed the boat on Iowa State. And it didn't help last night. Virginia getting hammered, and they give North Carolina the 1 seed. So I guess time will just tell.
Absolutely. When it really comes down to it, you're going to have to play UConn. You're going to have to play really good teams to get to the Final Four and get where you want to be anyway. But if it works out, you're going to have to play UConn in Boston, which is 90 minutes from their campus. And that's now there's a lot that has to happen before that to even come into fruition. But that's the issue with it. And that's what would be in that number 8 seed matters. Now, here's just it affected Iowa State, but I think they view that win against Houston on Saturday night the exact same as a game against, let's just say, it wouldn't be Iowa State, but let's just say against a North Carolina in November. That's what the committee says they do. It's no different. I can't see that. The teams that when you're playing in November, you are a different team than you are in March and how you are right now. So to say it should be the same exact value, I don't think is realistic, but that's what the committee says. And so, but I understand that's when Michigan State plays their tough non-conference. Kansas does. That's when you have to do it. I get it because you're not going to do it during conference season. But most teams are not the same March 12th as they are November 12th.
Yeah, and if they're going to say that, I'm fine with them saying that all games are created equal. Then why do we talk about their last 10? They're like 3-7 coming into the tournament or something. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, look at the whole body of work. Don't say, well, this team's hot. They won 8 of their last 10. That's why they got in over this team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Iowa State, if they wouldn't have lost to Kansas State in the last 2 months, they would have had 2 losses at Baylor where they hit a game-winning shot, but it was 0.1 or 2 seconds late, and then at Houston by 8. That'd have been their 2 losses. There's nobody that had a better 2 months than Iowa State.
Like I said, they take the whole season into effect, and you're right. Teams at the beginning of the season aren't the same as they are right now. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know the perfect way to do it. But as you mentioned, if really wish Iowa State probably could have beat Kansas State there in that final game of the regular season. That may have made a big difference for them. But still, and as you mentioned too, to get to an Elite Eight or a Final Four, you're gonna have to play good teams. So it is a tough draw for them. It's a little disappointing that they were the last number 2 seed, but I still think they can go on a run.
Yeah, so I believe the East is the toughest, and it's because Iowa State's the Big 12 champ, UConn's the Big East champ, Auburn's the SEC champ, and Illinois was the Big 10 champ, all in the same region and bracket, the 1, 2, 3, 4. And, there's a lot of people. I was looking today, I was filling out a bracket for Tyler. I had him do it in paper, and then I was just putting it on the computer for him. So I was just looking at kind of the people's bracket and just other people's brackets, and there's a lot of people that have Auburn beating UConn. So, and then just realistically, I mean, Iowa State could get beat by, the one team I don't like seeing in there, I'm cheering against them, is BYU. I want them to get beat in that first round. I want that 6-11 upset in that situation. I don't want BYU anywhere close to Iowa State in the Sweet 16. I'll play anybody else.
Yeah, BYU. I mean, you guys were very fortunate to get by them in Ames. They came out blazing. I mean, they can beat anybody, I think, at any given time.
They shoot it. The Iowa State defense is very good, but the thing they give up is if you can pass over the double team, cross court, the skip pass, and you can hit that 3-point shot, you will beat Iowa State. And BYU has the people to do that better than most any team in the country.
Also, the possibility of that second round matchup that we could get those teams there. That it's a little disappointing that one of them might get knocked out, but it does guarantee that one of them does get to the Sweet 16 if they do meet up in the second round.
And that's a good storyline. And Drake versus Iowa State in that second round, and the story is going to be made if both teams win is Iowa State won't play Drake anymore, and there's truth to that, but it's a little bit nuanced. Iowa State will play Drake every year, but it's going to have to be in Ames every year, and Drake doesn't want to do that. So it's because history shows where they used to go back and forth. Actually, Iowa State, last time they made the Elite Eight in 2000, finished the season 32-5 and actually lost at Drake. That was one of their 5 losses on the year. And so it's a little bit of both their faults on not playing. I do say it's probably more Iowa State's, but I understand Drake not wanting to go there every year either, but it would be probably a decent payday and obviously wouldn't cost you anything to get there. But that's just a tough thing because I think, none of the 3 of us are Drake fans, but I would cheer for Drake every game, want them to win every game they're not playing in Iowa State. And it just stinks that if they could win that first round, they'll play Iowa State. One, as an Iowa State fan, every game I'm always just a little nervous and just uptight because now they have the 2 seed. Last time we were 2 seed, we lost to Hampton in the first round. And you have that that just sick feeling in your stomach. Tomorrow night at 6:30, I'm going to be freaking it's just going to have a sick feeling in my stomach. They win that one, I'm going to have a sick feeling in the next one. That's just how I am. It's not probably a good thing, but I love Iowa State so much and just everything. And you want what's best for your team and everything. And you don't want to see that against Drake. Drake's going to have nothing to lose. And the only thing I'm worried about is here in the Des Moines market and everything, everybody's just moving Drake on to Washington State. Washington State beat Arizona twice this year. Washington State can beat Drake then Washington State's going to give Iowa State everything they have.
Yeah, it's just kind of that what nobody ever talks about the West Coast, but Washington State's very good. I was shocked that Drake's favored over them, but as a Hawkeye fan, I will probably be rooting for Drake, to go as far as they can. That would be my next best team to root for, but that would set up a fun matchup. I think Iowa State versus Drake. I mean, obviously for you, it's going to be a little more nerve wracking. I'll kind of just sit back and watch it, but just to touch back on Iowa does the same thing. We don't play Drake or UNI anymore. And I remember growing up, we'd play them every year, and they'd alternate. You'd see the Hawkeyes in the Unidome, and yep. I just wish they would keep playing those games. I mean, I understand why they don't, but those were always fun games to look forward to. A lot of in-state rivalries. All the players know each other, and now the only way we get a match up is if it's in a round of 32 in the NCAA tournament.
And it's a big deal for people our age and maybe a little younger and especially older. But the one thing, listen to all the podcasts from Iowa State, all the players on this team of Iowa State has no idea about playing Drake or not playing Drake. They have no clue. Mm-hmm. Taven Lipsey probably remembers it, but it hasn't happened for so long that he was probably 10 years old the last time they played, and that was in the Big Four Classic. So he might not even remember ever going down to Drake and playing Iowa State, and he's an Ames kid. He's just not very old.
Yeah, it's definitely a different world of, not only football, but in basketball with just how the big dogs kind of run things and money's kind of push the issue. And it's just kind of the world we live in now.
Yeah, money's the answer to the answer to every question is money. There's just no other way around it. We could talk, you could break down every game, everything, but one other thing, and this is just, kind of bias as Iowa State fan. Did Kansas dupe the committee? Just straight up dupe them? Obviously they sat McCullar and the big guy,
Hunter
Dickinson in the Big 12. And it came out and said they weren't playing. So essentially they made sure the committee knew we're not playing our best players. We're going to lose in the Big 12 tournament, but they're coming back for the NCAA tournament. Then it comes out today, McCullar is not going to play in the NCAA tournament. And so they got their 4 seed. Maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't have if he wouldn't have been available. But so they got their seed, they got everything set up, and now they say he's not playing. Did Kansas dupe the committee?
Well, you got to give Bill Self credit.
It's super smart.
Play.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Kansas is probably was going to be 4 or 5, I would think. But yeah, I definitely think he knew what he was doing when he did all that, when he said that and sat him out. And I think we've talked about this earlier. Usually Kansas is, picked by 20-30% of the country to make a Final Four, win it all. And this year they're kind of laying in the weeds. And, it wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden they're in a Final Four this year.
Yeah, this will be the year. Yep. Yeah. So, any other, big surprises, and we touched on it, but Virginia being in the tournament over a team such as Indiana State. I guess I'm going to ask your guys' opinion. Do you, and Iowa was in this boat until they lost the Illinois game and then they lost the Ohio State game. But do you want a middle of the pack power team, or do you want that team that won the regular season, a team that only has probably 4 or 5, 6 losses on the season from a mid-major, lower-level game? Do you want them in the tournament, or do you want that mediocre Power 5, Power 6 team in it? Trevor, you first.
You and I spoke about this. The tournament probably has too many teams from a competition standpoint. It makes it great for TV and watching. So in that aspect, I'd rather see Indiana State in just as an underdog story because we usually have 1 or 2 every year. So yeah, with that being the case, with there being 64 teams plus to play in games, I'd rather see Indiana State just for the storyline.
I guess I'm on the other side of this. It's even in football when you get these teams that go 13-0. I'm like, I would like to see this team go play Michigan schedule or Ohio State schedule. Let's see if they're 13-0. Like you put Indiana State in the Big 12, what's their record going to be?
Yeah, I mean,
are they gonna have 4 wins?
I would think so. I mean, but and then Houston's the argument against that. They were in the lower levels, and they were getting in the tournament because they were really good, and they made the Final Four, not being in the Big 12. Then they go to the Big 12 in their first year in a power conference. They go win the sucker, and they're a number 1 seed, so it made them actually better.
Yeah, but Houston's been really good. Indiana State is not quite in that level. I mean,
right, but that's
if you want to compare Indiana State and Virginia, I would probably. I mean, Virginia was not very good this year. I think I heard last night they had 4 or 5 games this year. They didn't even score 50 points. Had less than 14 at the half. They just struggle to score, and I think their coach even said they were going to take like a whole system overhaul this year because they got to figure stuff out to score. I mean, they're not that far removed from winning the whole thing, and they look like a shell of that program right now.
Yeah, the funny part about last night watching that game was that shirt that